Greetings, my name's Dwayne, and I want to take this time to show you how I've made these gnomes out of using foam cones. I get a lot of people that have seen me doing some different things other than my felt bodies that I typically do. And so I want to take a little chance to show you how to do something that's a simple gnome to make. A lot of people have been asking recently that they want to get started making gnomes, but they're a little bit afraid of doing the felt body or doing a sock body. So I'm going to show you how to make these gnomes out of using a cone. And it's also going to give you an idea on the hat here. So we're going to concentrate basically on the body here and on the hats to make these gnomes. And what I start out with is just using the craft foam cones. These are the 3.7 inch by 8.9 inch, so close to a 9 inch total on my cones there. I get these at Joann's, Hobby Lobby, Michael's. Almost everybody has these. Walmart has them. They run anywhere from $3.50 to $4 to get them. $3.50 is about the cheapest I found. I have found them online for about $2 if I buy in quantity. But with the shipping, still comes out to about $4 a cone. There are the smaller ones too. These you can pick up at the Dollar Tree or any of the other stores, usually for roughly about $1, but they are quite a bit smaller, even though they're about a 7 inch. That 2 inch makes a difference. Maybe someday we'll do something with these, but it is a very thinner, smaller body there, so I like to use. And they also have the green ones too. So you can either get the floral foam or the craft foam, looking at the same price, same size. They'll do the same thing there for you. And those are what I'm using to make these different gnomes here. So I'm going to show you how to make the body, and then we'll go over the cutting out the beards, putting the feet on. I've had a lot of people questioning about how to put the feet on, and the hats, and then you make it how you want to style it there. And what I do is I just start out taking the plastic cover off of it. I just want to keep it on there so you could see the measurements there that we're looking for as far as the cone. So I have my cone, and I'm just going to take one of my pieces, my 9x12 pieces of felt. Standard piece of felt. You can buy it, again, anywhere. Typically, the foam's going to have just a seam down it and everything. So I'm going to run that foam right down that seam. If it doesn't have a seam, that's fine too. Just run it pretty much straight down. I got a little bit at the top here, about 1 inch up here, and I want about 3/4 of an inch down at the very bottom here, just hanging over. And I'm just going to wrap that around onto the cone. And you can see it doesn't line up like right up here, but that's fine. Since I have it on there, I'm just now going to glue this seam down. Grab my hot glue gun. And again, just about a 1/4 inch of the way, run that all the way up. And just lightly pat it down there onto my cone. This side here, wrap it around. Now I'm going to cut off this excess here because I want more of just a straight line going across here for my seam. So I'm just going to fold that over right before it meets that seam. Take my scissors. And just cut that off. Now, save that piece. I'll show you what we're going to do with it a little bit later here too. I like to use as much as I can out of my felt. I'm going to need at least 2 pieces of felt though for this project, just to let you know ahead of time. And then I'm going to glue this down. Make sure my glue stick, there we go. Glue that right down along the seam there again. Onto my cone. Now, we have a seam here. It's going to be covered up by the beard, and all this is going to be covered up by the beard and the hat too. Now what I'm going to do, since I have about that 3/4 inch inside there, I want to cut this off along the round there. And again, I'm going about 3/4 inch up from the base of the cone. And I'm cutting around. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to come across exactly 3/4 inch. Just roughly about that size that I'm cutting through here. So once I've done that, I'm going to take in about every inch cut in, just almost to the cone. And just go all the way around. All right. And so why I do that is so I can actually fold these down and not get them buckling over. And I'm just going to glue them down, these tabs down. And this is going to be the base of my gnome here. And the great thing I find too about these, using the cones here and using them as a sitting gnome, I'm not having to fill them with anything. I don't have to put rice, pebbles, sand, anything, and polyfill. I already have something that has a base to it and is just going to sit there for me. Go around here. And the other part too, when we make the shoes, I'm going to show you quickly how I make my shoes because I've shown that in other videos. The shoes don't have to have the weight to them too either. The cone is wide enough, it's stable enough, it's heavy enough to stay up by itself. We'll get you all the way around there. Now, for the bottom there, I'm going to use my little piece that I cut out. Now, you have an option. You can either just put that down on there and trace around and cut it out. That would just make it easy to, just have a base down there. My simple patterns that I have, at least as far as the felt patterns, for my basic felt pattern, for my woodland pattern, for almost all of them, even for my house pattern, is a 3.5 inch across the bottom. This is 3.7 across, 3.5 is going to cover that nicely. So I'm actually just using the same pattern, 3.5, but you can also just put the cone on there and cut right around the base of the cone there. So I'm just going to cut out a circle here. If you have any of my patterns, like I said, just cut out the base, the 3.5, simple base there. If not, it's just 3.5 inches across that you can just make a circle and cut out. There's nothing that specific that you have. And again, save the scraps here. We're going to be using those still. This I'm just going to glue right down to my bottom there. Fold it up. And do about 1/4 inch through. I don't want it to leak through. I don't want it when I fold it back, put it down. I don't want it coming out the sides, having hot glue on the seams. I want it to come right out to it, but not to leak out. And you can do half or all at the same time. You can put the glue on it and then put the whole thing on it. I prefer to do it in sections, just to make sure I'm on there covering it. And just add some glue. And here I have my basic gnome body already made. Everything's put together there for me. I didn't have to do any sewing whatsoever. Even making the hats, making the arms, I'm going to show you, how I do the arms there too. All that can be done just with the hot glue gun. Again, we don't have to do any sewing. If you're a little intimidated about doing the sewing, the rest of it can be done anyway along that line too. But here I have my body. So now I'm going to need a beard for it. The beard, I use a faux fur, and the faux furs you can get anywhere. Again, any of the stores, major stores carry them. You can also order online. I've actually ordered this. It was either through Amazon or Etsy. I always get questions about where I get mine. I don't have a specific place that I can say that I order from. I just go online and I look. I'll put in like Etsy faux fur, gray faux fur, brown faux fur, put it into Amazon and just shop around basically. You can buy it either by the yard or you can buy it in smaller pieces. If you do buy from Joann's or Hobby Lobby or Michael's, you can get it just in the smaller squares, usually with the felt too. So you have several options there. Just look for the long pile fur. And this is probably a fur that I actually got from Hobby Lobby. And just a simple color there versus, just a brown versus the gray. You have all different type of color combinations you can do. This was something I got more for the Santa Claus beards when I was doing them earlier in the year. So anything along that line you can do. Now, to cut out my beard, I use 4 inches. And I'm only cutting the backing here. I don't want to use scissors because you're going to be cutting into the fur, and I don't want to cut too deep. So I'm just cutting into the backing. And with this, I'm doing a 4 inch over and then sort of marking where my 2 inches are, because halfway down, I want to go 5 inches down. So I'm at 4 inches across, 5 inches down. And at 5 inches, I'm going to, again, just lightly go across. So I have a little tear in there. And then I'm just going to curve up right up to my 4 inches there. And same thing on the other side. That's how I cut my beards out. I use an X-Acto knife. Now, there are some people who can use the scissors and just cut the backing, but be very careful that you're just cutting the backing of it, that you're not getting all this nice fur. And even when you are cutting it in some of the long pile stuff, you will get some of the scraggly stuff. And you can just pull that out, discard that. So you will get some of that stray stuff. Now, you could also use a small brush. I've had people tell me they do that, and I've done that with some of my other furs too. Just use a small brush for that. Now, with these gnomes, I really like the look that they have with a mustache going on them. So I do the beard, but I also make a mustache too for the gnome. And how I do that is once I've cut out my beard, I'm just going to go right next to it here. And I go over an inch. I cut down an inch. And I go down about 2.5 inches. I find 2 inches a little bit small for me, but I like about 2.5 inches. And again, I'm doing almost the same thing I do with the beard. I just round it off. And I cut just the backing. So I can get that cut out there. Again, just sort of brush it out a little bit. And I'm going to need 2 of these. So I got 1. And again, go over an inch. Come on down about 2.5 inches. and I round it out. And just brush it out a little bit. So those are going to be my pieces for my mustache. What we're going to do is I'm going to take my beard and I'm going to put the beard so I'm covering up that seam. And so my bottom of the part here comes right about to the bottom. Not quite the bottom, just about an eighth of an inch, a quarter inch above that, because you're going to have this fur that comes down to. If you have a longer faux fur, you can put it up a little bit higher too, but you're going to have the fur coming down on there. I like to have it hang over just a little bit on my gnomes there. And then I just simply glue that down, and I'll usually just do one half first. Run some glue right down the middle of the seam there, and then over to my sides. Just pat that down. And then I'll go on the other side and glue it down. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do that. Some people will just glue the whole thing at once and then just stick it on there. That's your choice. This is just how I like to cover. And now I have my beard on there. My mustache, as I said, is 2 pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it to the side. And right there at the center, just below my base, my seam up there that I have for there, I'm just going to glue it right about in the center there on the beard there. And about 1 inch down there with glue. That way it sticks out a little bit. And so I'm just below the seam there. Attaching that for my mustache. I had some people that, one of the other ones I did with the mustache, they cut out 2 pieces and they actually just put the 1 piece right on the center there and then asked me, well, what do I do with my other piece? No, that's why you put it in the center. It's going to be 1 on each side here. Again, glue that down about 1 inch there on it. So the seams come together right there. Just gluing it down there. Now I'm going to put the nose on. I use a 1 inch wood ball, and I've had my best success getting them from Hobby Lobby when they have them in stock. I've actually had to have them order them for me. They work out pretty reasonable as far as price rather than going online and buying them individually. They're $4.99 for a bag of 20 of them. So it works out pretty well. And I get the wood balls. I get the round ones. You can get the ones that are actually cut off flat too. Those work just as well to do that. And then I glue them right there where that seam is that the mustache comes together that I made. So I'm going to take just a little bit of glue on the bottom here. Find a spot that maybe doesn't look too perfect so I can cover that up. And then glue that on. That's going to take me a moment though for me to just hold it there. So we've already got the body, the beard, the mustache, and the nose going on here. We're going to show you the arms and the hat here in just one moment. The arms, I'm going to use my basic gnome arm pattern. And we're just going to let you sit for a moment. I use the basic felt arms that I have my regular pattern for. Now you can use, if you're using the dollar store the curlers, you can use those if that's what you normally use, or if you have another way that you normally make your arms, that's fine too. And this is where I'm going to need another piece of felt. And I usually try to make sure I'm using the same color that I used for the body. Now I can also use, if I have scraps left over sometimes, I'm going to grab another piece. I don't know if you can see. This is kind of a thin piece. And occasionally I will get a piece like that. And unfortunately, they do come that way. When you do buy them as just the squares. So lots of times I will do that, go online too, and I'll buy by the yard and get some nicer pieces. But so let's pick out a better piece here. And so I'm just going to cut out my basic arm pattern. Again, if you're used to using the curlers and just cutting around and doing the curlers, that's great too. You can do that just to make the arms. This is why so many people are saying when they saw cones on my desk and say, wait a minute, that's not what you do. You do the felt bodies. I do the felt bodies, but if I can do, cones, I do those too, because I love the way they do the sitting here. Also, when people ask me about doing bigger gnomes, can you do anything like 2 foot or 3 foot? The couple times I have done something, I have used the larger cones for those. So the cones do come in very handy. And if you're working with some of the other gnome makers too, they'll show you how they can use the cones to attach legs too. This is something that once you've learned your basic, now you can actually attach legs and feet to the bottom here too, or to the sides. So it gives you a little bit more variety and a little bit more options there too than just the felt gnomes. You can have something that has more of a stability to it to add the feet and legs to. I'm not going to do that here. I'm really not the one to do legs much. I have at times and probably will occasionally do more because I like to do a variety. But my arms, I've cut them out. Now again, I like to sew, and typically I would sew right up a seam here. But since we're just doing this quickly here with the hot glue, I'm just going to show you, we'll just run a seam down here and glue that together. So we have our arm glued here, and we would do likewise. The other one, glue it, and then we would turn them inside out. I'm just going to grab an arm here that's already turned inside out. And here again, I'm going to use my wood balls, but this time I'm going to use the 3/4 inch wood balls. Again, I get from Hobby Lobby. And I just mentioned that because it seems to be the place that I can locally get them from the easiest. And once I've turned the arm inside out, I'm just going to glue the inside there. Run some glue and stick my 3/4 inch ball right inside there. And it goes about halfway in. And then once that glue has dried for a little bit, because I'll do 2 arms, I'll do a second arm, I'll fill the inside with polyfill. Just fill it all the way down. And then once my arm's filled, I'll put just a little dab of glue in there. It helps again with the seam and also just to seal it up there. And then once I got both my arms together, I'm going to glue them, again, right where that seam comes together. Right there where my beard, top of the beard there, and my gnome comes together. So I'm folding my mustache back there, taking it with my seam side in on my arm, and running some glue on there. And then again, right where the seam comes together, gluing my arm on there. And just holding it down for a moment. As you can see it coming together there. And then I'll do the other side. There is no left and right arm, so if anybody tries to tell you there's got to be a left or right, there is not a left or right. We'll just glue that right down there. Now you can also make this without arms. If you don't, if you're not comfortable making arms yet, a lot of people starting out, they don't do arms. I know that. It's just easier to do the body, the beard, and the hat basically, but this gives you an idea of just putting arms together on it too. But you can do it without the arms there too if you want to make your gnomes that way. I know several crafters that still don't do that. Now, what I do is I pick out a fleece for the hat. Fleece I can use just to do some folding on and everything, and I can do any different type of color. There's lots of different colors as far as fleeces that I can get. Typically, and I think I'm going to go with a light fleece for this one, but typically I'll get my fleece from Joann's, and they have the remnant sections, and I usually get those for half off. So it's great to go in there. Plus, if I don't know for sure if I'm going to be using a lot of the material, or if it's my first time trying something, or I get, a lot of time I'm always looking at different things, and I love the different colors and different ways things look. Some of my fabrics don't work out. They don't always come out the way I want them to. But fleece seems to work really well, and they always seem to have an abundance of fleece, and somewhere close to a yard usually in their fleece there. So I'm going to put you up there for just a moment while I lay this out here to get it cut. So I can get my fleece for a good price and half off. And I can experiment. And if I do really like a color, I can go back and get that in a yard or something if I need it, if they don't have, if the remnant's smaller than a yard. So what I'm going to do, and this is where everybody's asking as far as how do you get the wrinkle in your hat there. I don't have a set pattern that's drawn out or anything like that. What I do is I use 6 inches. And I curve up. I go up about 1 inch because I want that when I tilt it for the hat to be the center, the point to be in the center. So I fold it over. I make sure I fold it over. If I got a little bit left over here, about 1 inch or so, and I'm gonna cut up 6 inches. This is gonna be the bottom of my hat. Again, just doing 6 inches there. Then for the rest of the hat, I'm just cutting upward. And what I do at least 12 inches. I'm looking to get at least 12 inches on there. And sometimes I'll go up to 14 inches. So the length is up to you, but I find at least 12 inches gives me the nice hat that I'm looking for to be able to do the slouchiness in the hat, if slouchiness is a word. So I'm just going to cut up in the triangle form. And as I said, I'm going for between 12 and 14 inches usually. at least a 12-inch. So here I probably have closer to my 14-inch, which is fine. And then turn it inside out. Once again, I'm one that likes to do a lot of sewing. I do hand sew almost everything. And I would do my blanket stitch all the way up there. But for this, I'm just going to show you we can also hot glue it. For those that are just learning how to do our gnomes here, just go ahead and run hot glue down the seam there. Fold it over. And then we'll let it cool and dry for just one moment here. And we'll have to turn it inside out. And as I said, I do a sewing, so I'm just going to turn it inside out. Fleece is nice and easy to work with that way too. You're not having to, worry about seams as much either. They come out real nice. I'm just going to go ahead and grab that one here. And here, I'm going to take my hat, put it over, and you're going to see a bulkiness to it. And that's what I want. I want it to be able to have that. I'm going to sort of roll it a little bit. And this is what's going to give it our character. This is what's going to give us those seams in it. So I'm going to roll that in a little bit so I have a seam to it. And run my glue across the back here, right about at the top where the arms, right where the arms come in there. And then roll that down on there. And this will take a moment for us to just let the glue dry. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll get the back on here, and then I'll start working on my shoes before I go and start gluing the front, because I want that glue to set and dry on there. Now the shoes that I use the Dollar Tree shoes, the plastic party favors. And what I do is I cut out a bottom for it and glue that on. And using that piece of felt that I have, you can just set it on there, cut it out, or you can just make, a little template and cut that out. Then what I do, once I've got my base on there, and you'll see like with Dollar Tree shoes, it has like a little opening in there. Normally that opening, that's where I take, and I'll either put polyfill in there, or I'll take my scraps and just bundle up my scraps and put them in there. We'll show you that in just a moment here as far as the inside of the shoes here too. But I could take my 9x12 piece of felt here that I have now, and I fold it in half, so the lengthwise there. And I cut out 2 inches. So I'm going to cut out 2 inches across. See if I have a template here. I don't seem to see one here, but and then cut that in 2. So I got 2 pieces here. So this is going to be my shoes that I wrap around. Again, however you make your shoes, go ahead. If you do use the Dollar Tree ones, if you're using the plastic eggs, if you're using the toilet paper rollers, there's so many different ways. You can buy different shoes too. I've seen those keychain shoes. Those work great too. However you make shoes, again, they don't even need shoes. If you don't want to do the shoes, this is just a fun part of it too. This is all just to accessorize it, trying to get you just a little piece of, a little bit, each time, adding something a little bit more. When I first started out, my gnomes were just the basic body, the hat, and the beard. And after a while, I started doing arms, and I really didn't like doing arms, but it became sort of the standard type of thing that I did with gnomes. And then after I did them for a while, I started doing feet and putting the shoes on them. So you begin to grow and you begin to learn a little bit more. So with the shoes, I just run a seam down there of glue and a little bit to the side there, and I'm lining up the bottom with my felt. The top's gonna hang over here. And I show this in other videos too, how to make the shoes. So we're just gonna quickly make them here. And you can decorate the shoes however you want. You can make whatever color shoes you want to. Again, it's your variety. You can add shoelaces to them. You can add buttons to them. There's so many different things you can do. I'm going to tell you over and over again that I'm going to show you the basics. I hope that you learn and can just start playing with the basics. And then once you get the basics down, that's when you start having fun and adding things, adding the accessories, adding the little touches that make them your own gnomes. Because you find all these start out the same. They all start out with the same cone. And from there, we just design it a little bit different, add something just a little bit different to each one to give it a different character. I love it. A lot of gnome makers say they just start out and then they make themselves. And you do. You just start adding things and you find that they get their own character and they tell you what they want. Now here, I have an extra good 3/4 of an inch or so left on there, almost an inch. I just trim that off. And we'll save the scrap to use that in a moment. And then I'm just going to glue this on. And I like to make sure I get that seam too, but not too much. I don't want it to leak out. I don't want it to pull the glue out and get messy on the back there. So just lightly tab it down. So if you haven't made shoes, again, you don't need to start out learning first thing how to make shoes to be able to make a gnome. Once you have the body, the hat, that's the basics for the gnome. And then I run just a little dab of glue down there on the shoe tip, and then around the sides, about 1/4 inch way down, I'll run it all the way around. At the shoe tip there, I'll fold in, do another fold on the side, a fold on the side there. And then this is the part where you got to be careful with your fingers, folding this down in there. You got the hot glue. Just make sure that you're being careful tucking that down in there. Now, this is when I say, you add character to what you're doing. You can put like a ribbon around the side here. You can put shoelaces on here. Make them look like a little Adidas shoes or however you want to put them together. I'm just going to show you the quick basic here and just show you how to put a pair of shoes together here. So once we got the pair of shoes, I'm going to go back, set those aside for just a second so I can finish up my hat because I know now that glue is set down, real well. And I'm going to do the same thing on the front here. I'm just going to curl that in a little bit. And just above that beard is where I'm going to run my glue. So I'm going to run that on the inside. let that, bring that down. And here's where I bring it down a little bit more so I can let it slouch over the nose there. So I'm gluing more up here at the top of the thumb here. I've rounded my hat out. Now you notice too that I didn't put any stuffing in the hat, and I'm not gonna put any stuffing in. I still got my cone going up here. I put my seam off to the side. I don't put my seam on the back, I put my seam off to the side. And then once that glue's dried a bit, I can leave it like that if I want, or secure it just a little bit more, since I got that fold there, just on the top of my nose. And that's what I like to do. I like to secure just a little bit on the nose. I don't want my glue to leak out, but I want to secure it a little bit. That'll help secure my nose and help secure my hat. By just adding that little bit, and try not to push too hard down. I'm sure you've done that before where you've had felt, and you've, felt or fleece, and you push too hard and the glue comes through. So I'm just, lightly holding that on there. But that'll help hold my nose in place there too. So I can play with it a little bit more. Since I got all this hat material here now, and I said I didn't stuff, this is where I get my creases. This is where I can just pull it down, play with it a little bit, and then I fold my hat over. And I can fold it over however I want. I can fold it up here if I want. I can leave it sticking up. I can bring it down farther. I do that, just a couple different things just like that to add some quick character to it. And by doing this, I glue my seam here, and that'll help hold the folds. Now, other people say you can run just a quick little string through there, or if I want, I could put just a dab of like hot glue in here just to hold that in there too. But I find as long as I'm just doing this, I'm going over here to where I have my seam, and you'll see the seam right in the hat there. I'm gonna run my glue on that seam, and that just supports the seam, but also when I fold it over here and hold it down, that's gonna help keep my creases in there. And that's the thing that people are asking about, is how do you get those creases in the hat? And I can do each one just a little bit differently. Each one comes out different. I can adjust it a little bit and play with it. As I said, you can make it more of a permanent seam to it, but this is just gonna give it some character, however you wanna go. If you wanna go with that hat coming down, if you wanna go with a pom-pom, make your own pom-pom and put it on the end there. You could do that. If you wanna just curl it up top there, and I added just a little flower there just for a little character to that one. But that's how I make those slouchy hats, and that's what people have been asking about, is how do you get that to just be slouchy like that? And I can play a little with it, give it some more character, move it around. Like I said, if I want, I'll just add just a little bit of hot glue just to touch on there. I prefer to try to do it like in a seam or something where it's not going to show. And that's going to give me my slouchy hat. So that's going to show you how I make my body out of a foam comb, my hat. I've made the shoes now. Now here's the question too, is how do you attach the shoes? More and more people are saying they like the sitting type gnome. It's fun type of thing, looking good, but they're not sure about how to glue them on there. This is where I've told you several times to save your scraps. I fill my shoes with my scraps. I just take whatever scraps I have and I tuck them in there. And it doesn't matter if it's the same color, different color, it's not going to show. What I want to do is get it filled in there enough that it's to the top up here. Then I'm going to put my glue in here. And I want to keep my glue on the inside seam of the shoe. I don't want this up on the top there as much. I don't want it coming out on the other side of the shoe. But that's one reason why I fill it, is because I have more of a surface there to glue onto the body of my gnome. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my gnome up on the table. I'll show you in just a moment. And then I'm going to put my shoe right up against him. I'm going to hold my shoe there. And you could tilt it just a little bit to the side there. But once I know I've gotten it flat there, I'm going to hold my shoe. I want to make sure I got my beard just pulled over a bit so it's right to the side of the beard there. And I want to be able to have it so it's going to sit on the bottom here. I'm not going to have glue coming out the sides. Now, even if you did get a little bit of glue coming out the sides, you can always work your beard into it, or again, add a little accessories to your side there, just for a little bit of character or something. The main part though is to make sure that you're not getting glue coming out the bottom there. And as I said, I like to fill that shoe up so I have more area actually gluing onto the side there. And this may take just a little bit longer too. I found that I'm going to be holding that, a little bit longer than I would if I'm just doing my arm or my beard or something like that, because I want it to take to that. And so I want to make that sure all that glue stays on there, sticks on there. And pretty easy to do once you have that. You can also do different things as far as, keeping the shoes either going straight up, or you could tilt them off to the side just a little bit. I like them pretty much straight up there with that. Also with some of these, I've used different colors as far as the bottom part of the shoe, and then lighter to match like the hat. And there's no right or wrong. You make it however you want to make it. I like to color coordinate. I have some places that just like to keep simple colors. They don't want a lot of different things thrown in there, so I try to keep with the grays and the neutral tones. If you've seen some of my flower hats, those are more colorful and everything. These, again, just stick with the simple grays, the browns, the greens. They go real well. And once I think that's on there real well, I'm going to take another shoe, and once again, just take some of my leftover scraps that I had there, stuff them down in that shoe. You don't need all the heavy weight like you would if you were putting them on the bottom there, which is another option too. If you wanted to build a gnome and put them on the bottom, you could do that. Or, as I said, other crafters will show you how you can take the wood dowels and actually with the foam put them in here. But we're doing for the sitting ones here, but giving you a lot of different options there too. So once again, I'm gluing on the inside, and I like to glue the whole thing. Not overdoing the glue though too. I don't want it to run out. And so bring the beard over to the side a bit. And I'm gonna set you up there so I know that he's gonna be sitting. And then once I have it in place, okay, I can move it. But again, you want to hold it for a few minutes here just to keep it, get it there working well and everything. And there you have your gnome. That is how I've made the cone gnome, made the nice slouchy hat to go along with it, added a mustache, the arms, the feet there to go with it. It's your gnome. It's however you want to make it. And that's what I like to see, is how everybody just takes it, interprets it from there. This is the basic, simple, just a quick little thing. There's really no, pattern to print out or anything like that. I just showed you as far as the quick measurements on it too. And you do it your way. And then that's the fun part, is adding the things to it from there. It gives it the character. That just gives it more the woodland look. I like the woodland gnomes. So I'm going to add things that go with it and usually stick within the same color themes with that. So that's how you make the cone gnome, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I love to see what you guys are doing.